Hello, everyone, and welcome to the new podcast here at Westminster College called Before the Tassel, where we highlight the students before graduation. This podcast is a spinoff from the original podcast here at Westminster, After the Tassel, which is hosted by the incredible Michelle Craighead and James Kendall. After the Tassel highlights the alumni who have graduated Westminster College and have found identities in the world with wonderful jobs and opportunities. Our goal with both podcasts is to help our students prepare for life during and after college through the personal testimonies from our students of today and yesterday, as well as giving our students any tips and tricks they need to succeed in the classroom and the workforce. Today we have our first and very special guest, Sayid. Sayid, tell us about yourself.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here. I'm really glad to be here today. My name is Sayidcali Ahmed. I'm from East Africa's Hargeisa-Somaliland. I'm currently a senior major in podcast, double major in podcast science and global international studies. So I'm looking forward to do this podcast with you.
It is always a pleasure to have someone of your caliber here, especially the first guest. This is really exciting. This is going to be the beginning of something great, I believe. So what led you to Westmo? Actually, before you answer that, what colleges were you looking at before you got to Westmo?
That's a good question. So, my journey of coming to the US, it actually began back in 2016. So the first time when I came to the US, I came in America as an exchange student. So I was going in high school for like in my last year of senior year in high school in Indiana, called Carroll High School. And then after I finished my exchange year, I went back home. And at that time, I could have gone to college, but I said, I know college is an important time, and if I wanna go to college, I wanna go for the right reason. So at that time, I didn't really know what I wanna do for a major. What I did was I took 2 years gap of working back home, working for the Somaliland government, and at the same time also working with my American boarding school back home. That I went to only American boarding school in East Africa, and then after that, um, back in I think it was like late 2018, mid 2019, I started applying colleges. So I was looking to different colleges. Some were from Europe, Canada, Germany, um, and a couple other colleges from the US like TCU, University of Rochester, New York. And then what led me to Westminster College is I'm a MasterCard Foundation scholar, and they sent me a list of colleges, universities that they have a partnership with. So Westminster was among those colleges that have been listed. And lucky enough, I had some other my friends who came to Westminster College before me. His name, like I think, like there were like four other students who came before me, like Mustafa Elmi, who graduated. I think it was early 2018, and when he graduated, he also went to a Cambridge University. So a lot of the people who I knew who went to Westminster College, they all end up in great places, like either going to top graduate schools in either in America or other countries in Europe. So it kind of was like, and my friend Mustafa, and he also kind of described to me, he was like, Westminster College is located in Fulton, Missouri, which is calm and quite beautiful city. I was like, that's where I want to go for college. I grew up in a big city, but I was also thinking about saying like, I would also want to stay for education in a little bit quiet setting than the one I grew up back home. So that kind of led me to come to Minnesota College.
See, I grew up in St. Louis, and the first college I went to was Tennessee State, which is in Nashville. Nashville's a big city. Vanderbilt is right down the street, big college, D1. And then Fisk is right down the street, a great HBCU. And then Tennessee State, the school that I attended, is a huge HBCU. Like they have a big basketball team, big football team, and then like you have the not only do you have the big college, you have all of these other surrounding colleges and these other surrounding distractions. For some people, coming from a big city and then going to another school in a big city, it's like, going from one home to another home. But for me, it was really overwhelming. And it caught me by surprise because it was like, how is this affecting me this way? Because, I am used to this. Like I'm used to seeing so many people. St. Louis is like divided up in different cities. Like
it's a big city.
It's huge, and you going from Indiana, Somali, and then having the opportunity to go to different countries, that's amazing because we both ended up in the same spot in Fulton. And Fulton being small, it's like it feels like it's more home.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I'm in my backyard right now.
Yeah.
You know?
I 100% agree with you. Like, just imagine, the lady who works at the dining hall knows by your name.
Yep.
The lady who works at the JCI, the coffee shop. Not only she knows my name, but she also knows what my coffee order is. I don't have to tell her anymore. She was like, "Oh, hey, how are you?" And I feel like that makes me day every day in the morning. Like when I go out there, she was like, "Hey, good morning." I don't have to explain what kind of coffee I want. Like I think that is the beautiful thing about Westminster College is not only knowing your other classmates and college mates, but also like knowing other members of the community.
Yeah.
And also them knowing you, who you are, but just your name, but also like having an actual conversation with you is, and I feel like that was the best highlight. If I want to say like one of the best highlights about Westminster College is like not feeling a stranger anymore. Like I don't see any face every day. Like if we haven't taken class together, or if we haven't met in class before, I have so many other ways to meet with you, either working together at the gym or running to each other, chase the eye, or like going together at the dining hall. So there are a lot of ways to meet, which I feel like it also kind of helps another freshman in here when you come here. Like it's not that hard to make friends. It's like just if you do if you take a lot of events happen. So I do agree with you. Like Westminster, like Fulton Field is home when you know a lot of people.
Yeah, like it's crazy how you say freshmen. It's like it's not hard to make friends. Like it's just you see everybody every day. It's class with them. You're probably going to walk back to the dorms with them. It's so easy to interact with people. And everyone here is just really friendly. Like if you need help with class, you're going to find someone. If you need help finding a job or internship, you're going to find someone, and then you're going to lead. It's going to lead you to bigger and better opportunities just by saying hello to one person.
Yeah,
and that's really hard at a big school.
Yeah,
really hard.
Indeed. Yeah. I kind of like how you mentioned like that you went to you spent part of your time in Tennessee too. Also before I came to Westminster College, I think that was the summer before my freshman. I was attending University of Rochester, New York, for for like training as part of my scholarship orientation. And like University of Rochester is just a massive university. It's so big, but I was like, when I came to Westminster College, I was like, oh man, I really like I don't have to take bus anymore between classes and the dorm. I can just walk into my dorm straight, like less than 5 minutes. So it feels really good,
I know what you mean. I had to take a bus at Tennessee State, and it was for art class of all classes. I hated it. Like, there's no off-campus classes. The only off-campus class that they have is if you take it at William Woods.
Yeah.
Which is
just like
down the street.
Yeah.
Like that. And that's beautiful because I feel like, not a lot of kids have cars, or, sometimes it's just really hard for transportation.
Yeah.
So that really was a big pet peeve of mine when I was at Tennessee State, taking the bus to class. Yeah. Now, you said that you had attended New York, Rochester. Which place did you like really help mold your decision into coming here? Because you went and did a lot of things at other places before you got to Fulton.
Yep.
So, and Fulton is really small compared to like New York, Indiana, Somali. Like what places or what experiences from those places helped you help bring you here?
Yeah, that's actually a good question you ask. One of my friends was describing to me Westminster College. I felt like he was describing the boarding school that we went together. The boarding school I went back home is called a varsity school, which is the only American boarding school in East Africa. It's also one of the best schools in Africa. Like you can just tell like how many students they have sent to one of the best colleges in America and other countries around the world. And I was like, he was like, hey, just think about our boarding school. Like we all knew each other in our boarding school. It was like Westminster felt like that. My professors, they didn't just know me by name. They knew what I was. They knew my story and where I came from. And I was like, I want to be part of that. And he was like, sometimes my classes didn't feel like a class. They felt like, I was having a conversation with my friends and another person. I was like, I like that smaller circle of discussion, like talking things, through, like hearing from other people rather than like learning things that old traditional way of the professor lecturing, you take notes and then you head out. I was like, I don't want to do that. I felt like I like this, sitting in a round table, discussion things like other people willing to hear what I want to say. So I feel like that when he was talking about, he kind of drew similarities, between our boarding school that we went together back home and Westminster College. So I was like, I wanna be part of that smaller community where I know everybody, also professors know who I am, and not a lot of people. Like I think a lot of people know this when you go to grad school, but going to small liberal art college for your undergrad, it teaches you a lot. Like you are not just there by a number, but you matter. What I mean by that is like if I'm sitting in a classroom in a lecture hall, the professor might not even like know me who I am. But sitting in classroom at Westminster College is we know like our number of class professors really love to keep classes smaller so that they could have the chance of hearing from everyone. And I feel like academically speaking, it prepared me a lot, because like for example, if I'm taking class with Dr. Tobias, and I will be able, like, I will have the chance to contribute something to that discussion. And in order to make that happen, I have to prepare for the class before I got there because I know I will be asked to say something about the reading and the material that we're talking about. So academically watching it was the best choice for me to come to Westminster College and embrace that smaller and discussions that I was taking part.
That when I first came here, that was the biggest thing that separated Westminster from any other college I've ever been to, because it's like mandatory that you take a speech in every high level class. And when I first got here, I wasn't really used to the discussions in every class. Like I had Dr. Richard Geenan, one of the greatest teachers I've ever been around. Just his capacity to teach, his capacity to initiate a classroom and really include students in discussions and just like really test your abilities to think. Really like, and that was my first class I've ever been to at Westminster. My first class, 8 a.m. and I was there every day. Probably missed 2 classes because it was cold outside. But like just the fact that I was discussing things about morality, life or death, it was really just captivating to me. And that's I didn't get that at Tennessee State. Didn't get that at Lincoln University, another school I went to. But Westmo was really what challenged me mentally and academically. So that I definitely agree with you. The discussion part was what set the school apart. So I know that you love Westminster. I love Westmo. It's always going to have a special place in my heart. Do you think that after school, because you're not going to be able to, always do the things you love to do, you have to sort of find peace at what you have. So do you think that you should do what you love or do what's available for you when you graduate as far as in the workforce?
That's a good question you ask. I always say this, what you're gonna do, it doesn't depend on whether you love or whether it's available, but it depends on what is your mission, what is your purpose in life, I always say my goal is at the end of today, like I'm not gonna be forever alive, but there will be a day that I'm no longer gonna be here. And I always say like leave good remarks behind. And leaving the world a better place than you found it. Find that purpose and work around with it. If you want to find a job, say, okay, will this job lead me where I want to leave this world? Like, am I going to leave a good legacy behind? For example, like, I'm majoring in political science and global international studies, but I always knew that education was something for me. I always knew loving and I love being part of the education institution. And I asked myself, one day I want to leave education institutions either in the US or back home. And I said, imagine like if I contribute my country back home, educating enough people who could make the change that will happen like in the upcoming 10 years, 20 years, 40 years. So
That's
like,
very
and
well
I always say like if you wanna pick an internship, sometimes I know a lot of people wanna like either base well. It's a good idea, to think about the financial independence that comes with it. But I always say, have a mission and stick with it. I feel like when you have a purpose in life, it will lead you into a lot of different places, because you are focused, you are dedicated, and by just having that, I feel like that is how I see my life. It's not like doing what is available. It is like doing what is meaningful to me, and it's also what's gonna be impactful to my life after I leave in this world.
That's very well put, because a lot of students today, they see college as sort of a way of trying to get to the top. Like they want to get rich through college. That's the way that people see school. Like if you get a degree, I'm paying all this money for this degree. I got to make something of it. Not what can I get out of this degree as far as myself. How can I become a better person in college? Not what can I do to get paid. When you think about it differently, how you put that, it's just your perception of school is just totally different. Like college is scary. Like life after college is very scary, especially when you're on the brink of graduation, which me and you are both on. But when you have the mindset that you put, you want to build a better place for the next generation. You want to have your purpose, do what your purpose is in this life. That makes the journey so much more easier. And I feel like more people should know, because I grew up wanting to play basketball, sports, anything with sports. Me now, I know that that's not going to happen. So what can I do? I've been asking myself this whole semester, like, what can I do to really make an impact and leave a legacy that's, going to stand the test of time? And the fact that, you have done so much here at Westmore, and you're only going to do more. And the mindset that you have had this whole time is that this is my purpose. My purpose is going to be building a legacy for my name, my family, for everyone. I'm going to bring people along. Whatever the case may be, that's amazing.
And I feel like that's I always say, like and I think as far as the mission of Westminster College, like we learn at our freshman year, like what is your purpose, like. I remember my freshman year when the professor asked, like, our LSD class leadership, we're in class, and I was like, I need to think about that, like what kind of, like, yes, a lot of people see college as a get into financial independence, but at the end of today, there will be a day when we are no longer here. Like, I don't want to be I don't want to be that person that everybody remembers as, he was with the money. But I want to say, I want to ask myself, what do they do with that money? What do they do with the education? Was they able to, create opportunities for someone who never had an opportunity like that? I feel like money is a good. It's also it becomes good when you use it for the good purpose, like build a bridge for other people to climb in, build a people like a ladder for opportunities for other people who never had it. If they never had it before, make one for them, Like, don't just think smaller, but I always say, like, you could have, a lot of people think about, yes, you could be a great global citizen, but before you make a bigger change globally, I feel like, they say charity begins at home. Start giving out good deeds within your home, then you can help the next neighborhood. But how can you feed the next neighborhood when your own family are needing food, I cannot give out charity when I know my own family needs food. So like charity begins at home. Start doing things. For example, like you play basketball. You may not have like the opportunity to play basketball a lot in the future, but maybe you will have some free time on the weekends. You could say, how can I arrange, a pickup games for the kids in the neighborhood, which can help them like get distracted with something else that they have been doing. So there's always a reason to do when you have a purpose, when you know how you can use the talent and the opportunities you had.
That's, Sayid, you are students. If you are listening to this podcast, I hope you are taking notes because, when I was a student before the semester, I really was coming to gripes about what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be, and I knew I needed to change a mindset. And once I started giving to the kids, giving back to people, I really just started to fall into that role. And hearing you say that, even Westmo taught you like, what is your purpose? It started at Westmo.
Yeah.
Like, that's really amazing. So
that's the first question you'll be asking freshman leadership within class.
really,
Write it down,
Mhm.
and writing I think is really important. Like
Mhm.
if something's written down for you, it shows how much
Mhm.
important those dreams are to you. And it's no longer just a wish; it's an actual concrete
Mhm.
dream because you wrote it down. Which is always the people like have a journal, write it down,
Mhm.
because you always have a lot of great things to think about.
Mhm.
But if you don't write it down, you forget about
it.
them.
Yeah. Parents always used to tell me, Dexter, why didn't you take the trash out? I forgot. Maybe you need to write it down. And now you write down your goals. I put stuff on sticky notes now. I put it on my door. So before I leave, I see my goal for the day. Just be great, 120%. Because it helps with your mind state.
We need that reminder a lot.
Yeah.
Positive affirmation, like always
Mhm.
feeling something good to yourself.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I know we talked about graduation, like doing what you love, and you said you should do your purpose. So with that being said, is there anything that scares you about life after college?
Yeah, there are.
Mhm.
Because like you have transition into a different world that you were never part of before. So
Mhm.
like for the past, like let us say maybe for the past like 16 years of your life,
Mhm.
you had the title of being a student, and now you're stepping into a world
Mhm.
where you may have a specific role within a corporate
Mhm.
or a different organization.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of things that you don't know. Sometimes like you might even question yourself, am I good enough?
Yeah.
So it is. I always say like, life is scary. It's not that we don't know. It is
Yeah.
it's the part that we don't know.
Mhm.
Like, and I feel like as a human, we always love
Mhm.
to think about a lot,
Mhm.
the unknown part, rather
Yeah.
than using
Mhm.
the part we know and figuring out the part that we don't know. So
Mhm.
indeed, yeah, it is. It's scary, and like sometimes, like maybe you don't know, you never had that opportunity of navigating the real world
Mhm.
as like as a full-time employee or worker.
Mhm.
So it is scary, but at the same time I always say like it's part of the change.
Yeah. Yeah.
Life goes one way, it's always forward.
Yeah. It's
And
like being a butterfly.
yeah, I always say like it's gonna be scary, but take each day at a time.
Yeah.
you know
It's
and
funny that you say that because I always see college as like this
yeah,
cliff, and it's just very misty at the bottom. It's dark. You don't know what's at the bottom. You don't know how far that drop is. You just know that you have to take that leap.
yeah,
And when I was talking to James, he was like, I wouldn't see it as a cliff because it's more like a hill that you have to climb. Like it has it's ups and downs,
yeah,
but no matter what, you're going to catch yourself. And you brought up that the humans always think about things that we don't know. Biggest question is what comes after we die. And we can't control that.
yeah,
So why not just worry about what we can control, even
yeah,
if it is scary?
yeah. Like use what you have
Mhm.
to find what you don't have.
Mhm.
Like use those resources you have. For example, like
Mhm.
I think if you're a freshman today in college, sophomore, junior, or a senior, you can learn a lot from college too.
Mhm.
Maybe I could say, if besides the academics, the academic credentials,
Yeah.
another thing that you can take with you after college is self-discipline.
Yeah.
If I was able to manage in college every day to wake up at 8 a.m. in class,
Mhm.
that means I taught myself a discipline of waking up
Mhm.
before 8 a.m. so that if I could show up that class every day,
Mhm.
that means I'm not going to have a hard time missing work because
Mhm.
I know what it means, like
Yeah.
waking up early. So I feel like there are a lot of things that you can take with you in the real world that will make it less scary than you thought.
Yeah.
For example, like I know a lot of people say, oh, what about if I offer sleep, work,
Mhm.
but I'm like, but this is something that you could do
Yeah.
in college. It's like learn how to do that self-discipline. I always say like motivation is good, but self-discipline can take you farther than motivation.
See,
like that, and that is the thing. Like learn, like discipline yourself. Like sometimes, like I know a lot of people say like I don't like working with different people, but that is the part of the real world. You'll be working with someone who has a different religion, different culture, different background than you, and if you can learn how to work with people like that in college, then again it helps you become less easier for you in the real world. Like it is no more like it's no longer as scary as you thought because you have all of these resources. You develop all of these skills like communication skills, teamwork, networking. All of those things are what could make it a lot easier and less scary in the real world. But if you don't do those things now and you just stay within your own within your own comfort zone, there is no more growth with you. But sometimes it is okay to challenge yourself, like leave your comfort zone. Maybe say today, like maybe every month you can write down one goal saying like this goal is I want to get to know someone that I haven't met before. And then that could be like another way of developing it.
Students, Sayid is dropping dimes right now. He just gave you a reason to wake up at 8 a.m. and go to class. You need it to work after school. You realize you might have to get up at 5 a.m. You have kids, you got to take them to school and then go to work. So your day is going to start at 4 a.m. sometimes. Like if you don't take anything from what Sayid has just said, please remember that school is way more than just going to class. It's about learning how to discipline yourself. That is probably the most important thing he will say today. Because if you don't get anything out of school, even if you get bad grades, you can still be successful because you learn how to discipline yourself. School may not be for everybody, but if you learn how to master yourself, you can be unstoppable. That's probably that is something that people do not pay attention to. They see school as just going to class. No, it's way more. You got to network. You got to get in people's faces. You got to get out your comfort zone. You got to do things that you're not accustomed to doing.
And I'm glad that you brought up that too. Like as part of our college, we take foundational courses, breakthrough courses. Some of the courses that you were required to take were some like class that you were not interested in personally, or sometimes they would even challenge your own view of the world. But that's important. That is how it is in the real world too. You will be working with someone that you may consider now as a crazy person, but that's how they see the world. And taking classes like that, which challenges your own way of seeing the world, is important. Like it kind of goes back to what we were talking earlier. Like challenge yourself, leave your own comfort zone, and say, you know what, I want to do something different. And I feel like yes, it is scary. Especially like being your own when you graduate, saying, you know what, like your mom, your family, I will expect you like to be your own independent now since you're a college graduate. But I feel like you could build the empire you want from here and working your way up. Like when you go to like after you graduate. But I feel like as we talk about, like there are a lot of important skills that you can learn from here that will like leave the path for you after you graduate. Like a lot of things can do, like friendship, networking, self-discipline. Saying like I think you have seen this a lot of times. Sometimes professors, give us a prompt that goes against like what we actually believe, but I have to argue either with or against. And I feel like if you could master that skill, like, hey, how can I agree to disagree something, or how can I put myself to see other people's perspective? That is another important skill for you, because tomorrow you will be working with someone like who have a different perspective than you. But if you could put yourself through their shoes, I feel like you had a wonderful college time.
And Westmo has like that. You saying that just magnifies how unique of a school Westminster is, because like I know I said it before, I've had so many experiences I've never had at any college, at this school, in the classroom. And like I've written so many papers about things that a teacher gave me that I had no choice on. I had to, even if I was for or against it, I still had to write a paper or make an argument for or against it. And it was one of the most awkward and hardest things I ever had to do because I had to change how I thought just so I could pass this assignment. And the assignment isn't to say I want you to change your mind um, so you can think how the prompt says. I just want you to argue. Step outside of your body and into someone else's and argue for them. And it when you can do that, you are able to do so many things because now you're able to fit in any crowd and hold a conversation with any person. Like anybody that has a different view than you, like it's just you're able to hold your composure. Like you're way more attentive to what people say.
Yeah.
So that was another huge reason as to why Westminster is like one of the greatest liberal arts schools in general I've ever been to, even attending or visiting college.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. So what do you want to do with your major?
As I said, I major in political science and global international studies. I could do a lot with my major. I had this thing in mind, like to pursue later on after college, like creating international law, or diplomacy. But later, I also, as I said earlier, like education has always had, a special place in my heart. Like educating the next generation or being an advocate, policy advocate, who could create policies that would actually empower our education system. So my goal after graduate school or like with a political science degree is I want to pursue in education policy and analysis, where I will be creating policies that will reform our education system nowadays. And I feel like I could go on this, but like actually during the COVID-19, as a humans around the world, it unfolded for us to see that the way we were living wasn't the best way. That the education system we had wasn't the best education system, because if anything happened, like COVID-19, it wasn't sustainable.
Yeah, exactly.
And it actually made me to think about a lot. Like, we also know about the criminal justice. It also showed how our legal system wasn't the best one. We need to make change. I always say, like, the life before COVID-19 wasn't beautiful. And it was an awakening call for all of us to take that, say, hey, I think we just get an alert that we need to do things different than we would do before. So my goal is, I want to advocate for education in any children around the world who never had the opportunity to go to school. I feel like education is a right for every child. Every child has the right to be in a school and be a kid and a student so that they could build the future that they want. So my goal is, I want to pursue a career later on in education, either creating policies for education. Because when people think about education, they only assume a teacher. But I want to be that one who empowers the teacher so the teacher could live the life they want, at the same time do something that they enjoy, which is educating the next future change makers. So that's where I want to go with my life.
And the fact that COVID-19 was such a odd time, like it just happened overnight. So many things led up to like anytime I think about COVID-19, it's just like, you have the Great Depression, the recession. I think of COVID as like the Great Confusion because like I remember calling my dad and I was like, Dad, like, are we gonna die? Like, is this the end? Like, is the Bible? I was thinking about the Bible. Like, everybody had an opinion as to what was going to happen. Whether it was religious, whether it was government mandated, it didn't matter. Like, there was an explanation for every situation, and none of it made sense because it's like you're just waiting for something bad to happen. And then you think about school and how, that was handled. Now we have to go to classes online, on Zoom. It's easier to cheat. You got doctors cheating to get out of school now because it's easier. It's the easiest thing to do. It's the easy way out. COVID, before COVID and after COVID, it's night and day. School is so like even how you carry life is so much more different now. Yeah. And I really feel like education and the government system both took like it just shed a light that showed like how corrupt and how just in the past we are. Yeah. So I totally agree with you, and we definitely do need to change something because it was just like it just I don't know it just no one was on the same page with anything. Yeah, like it was just like a very odd time, and then you're forced to go to class, at college, and if you get sick, it's just like you just have to do that. But you got other kids going to class online, not attending school, being just it was just all over the place.
Yeah. And again, I actually like how you mentioned that, that it wasn't like an easy time for a lot of us. Again, going back to the goal of education, even within the education system, COVID-19 was also allowed for us to shed a light that what we prioritize in our education system, a lot of times were not the important thing. Actually, COVID-19, it allowed for all of us to talk about, if not the first time, but the most important time we ever needed, what mental health is. And I feel like a lot of people, we didn't only face a financial challenge in the COVID-19, but it was a time for all of us to relearn ourselves, figure out who we are, and say, why am I feeling this way? Maybe even personally for me too, I actually realized that I need to take care of my mental health the same way I do for my physical health. Yeah. And if I want to create a policy in the future in education is, I want to prioritize, okay, doing homework is not the only important thing within the education, but what can I teach? What are the real life skills that I could teach and implement within the education system that a kid could take with them when they graduate? Yeah. If I could normalize mental health through education system, I feel like we accomplished something with the education system, which is why I said politics, I mentioned political science, and people always mention political science are always known for people who are always going after their own personal interests. But I feel like being a politician, it means you select yourself to be a voice for the voiceless people. Yeah. And I feel like that's a mission, that's a call, and I have to use that for the right way to advocate for those ones who has needed, to advocate and be a voice for those ones who never had anyone who speak up for them. So I feel like that is where I want to go with my political science degree. Is I learn now how government system work, and I wish I could change a lot of things, but I pick education. I said, what can I do? How can I be the only politician who will be advocating for education of children, specifically girls, for young girls? A lot of places around the world, specifically in Africa. I was listening to this podcast the other day. Every 5 girls, there's 1 girl who's out of school. Yep. And a lot of countries, even my own country back home, women are more than half of the population. And imagine having more than half of the population who can't even write. How can you even develop? Wow. Again, as I said, like COVID-19 was a time that actually showed us that the things that we saw was our priority wasn't actually our priority. And when the COVID-19 happened, a lot of girls who had a hard time going to school, it actually put them back another like 20 steps back than they were before. Domestic violence, all of those things like what some of the things that were happening, and women usually face most of those challenges at home as well. So I feel like my voice, if I want to be a politician, is I want to be that one at least who will advocate education for children.
That's wow, Sayid. That's amazing. Like I mean, I knew education was a concern, but to hear that 1 in every 5, wow. It just And this is exactly why I've shifted my whole mindset to the future and not more so me.
Yeah.
You know, my time is coming to an end as far as athletically. You know, the fire, the drive. I could be a teacher, but my expertise more so lies in the sports field, and I want to do the same thing that you want to do. You know, because one outlet that a lot of kids have is sports. You know, basketball, football. It keeps them from doing bad things. You know, so and that's the easiest thing that I can do to help um, get kids to understand that you can go to school. You know, you don't have to go be a professional sports player. You can use your athletic abilities to get you to college for free, and then hone in on who you are, learn how to really uh, um, make the best version of you, and then go into the world. Like it's not sports isn't the end all be all. I feel like sports is just something that you should use to get to higher places, not to something that should define you.
Yeah.
And education is just really not a big emphasis on kids today, and it's was really highlighted during COVID, just like how you said. Like 1 in every 5 women. Wow.
Yeah, education, not that many of people see us this way, but I consider education as a privilege. It's just a unique career you have. Like we can think about this, like just being a college graduate student. Being a college graduate, it opens doors for you that it isn't for someone who never went to college. That is a unique privilege.
Yeah.
And I feel like, what is the point of having a privilege if you are not using your own privilege to uplift other people? I feel like that's a waste of potential, waste of investment if you don't use your voice to be part of something bigger than yourself. As I said, like before, my freshman year, I remember when I was declaring my major as a political science major, I was thinking about pursuing a career in international law, and then I said, how much impact can I make with an international law degree or a career, and how much impact could I make with being a political analyst or political advocate for education, And then I realized that there are more people who need their voice to be uplifted within the education because they don't have access to education. And education, it leads to, I consider education as a center of a lot of problem solving. If we have an issue with the economy, it goes back to education. Where do people have access to the same opportunities of education? If we both went to the same college, that means we both have the credentials to uphold, the same career. But if you had a specific education system and you never did, that means you have a different key than me. Your key will open a lot of doors for you, but mine may be for you. Again, healthcare system. If you want to change the healthcare system, do people have access to information? Can they read and write? Because when you can read, and I think COVID-19 actually highlighted that too. It actually COVID-19 also showed us the important information and where do we have access to that information. A lot of people, they couldn't read and write, so they didn't know how to consume dealing with the COVID-19 because they were like, I don't know, because I can barely read. Again, education comes up a lot, but it's not only for education, but it's the right education. And that means it needs the right people and the right people with the right mindset and right investment to make that happen.
Sayid, you're dropping so many downs right now. I mean, it's just wow. Like education is always the forefront in anything. I mean, you think about the greatest dynasties from the past. Ming Dynasty, the greatest Chinese dynasties, the pyramids. That's all leads to education, regardless of how they built it, who they used to build it. Some of the greatest mathematicians were born in that time. And even to this day, we don't know how they got those pyramids.
Even as a humans, we made a massive progress when we learned, when we discovered a lot about the science and the math. You know how we build houses nowadays. It's based on math, geometry, algebra. we learn about economics, it's based on math and science. So I feel like yes, education is really like um, it's really important and it's the key for development we're talking about. Yeah.
It's our history. So the final question that I'm gonna ask you today is probably the question that I'm so glad you picked this question out of the ones that I listed for you, and because it's a question that I really feel like people ask themselves so often. Like, if I was younger, like if you were younger, what advice would you say? Like, what would you, if you could see your young self right now, what would you say to young Sayid?
Oh wow. Um, that's a good question. And actually, like a lot of times, whenever we either like achieve something, we always look back. Sometimes like a lot of us, we just like when we're thinking about the future, we think about us at that moment, at that time, but we don't think about the change that come with whenever we go somewhere. If I could give an advice, couple of advices to myself is, to my younger self is, embrace the change. Embrace the change. Change is not comfortable thing, but it's mandatory. It's really important. It's an essential. And what I mean by embracing that change is normalize for yourself that it is okay to outgrow from certain places and also to outgrow from certain people. It is okay. That's part of the life. You some people will be part of your life at a certain time, but don't be too hard on yourself if they are no longer riding that ride with you. It's okay. That's part of the change. If you see yourself like and that you saw certain things in a certain way, but today you see it totally differently. Don't be too hard on your younger self at that time. You were just thinking the way you saw the world at that time. You didn't have all the experience and the knowledge you have today. Another important advice is, which is I consider it is important whether you're a student, whether you are a professional person, it is okay to ask for help. None of us knows everything. If I don't know something, it's okay. And it doesn't mean that you're weak. It just means that that you are actually trying it. And actually, this is fun. Even though I'm a political science major, but also I tutor math for fun, which I love it. I love when a student asks me a question, saying, "Hey, I don't know this part. Would you mind helping me with the other part?" I love that. That shows me that that student's actually trying to do the work. And what I always tell them is, okay, I'm happy that you asked for help. Let us use what we know to figure out what we don't know. So if you're asking for it, that means it's like, that means it doesn't mean that you have nothing to offer. It means you know something that lead you to figure out that you actually need help with something else. So embrace, like, it's always normalized for yourself that it's just okay to ask for help, either. And also importantly, if you need help, mentally and emotionally, it is really, really important. Like, I don't know how many times I could emphasize this, but mental health is important. And if you need help with anything, please reach out to your beloved ones, whoever's nearby you. It doesn't mean that you are weak. It actually means that you love about them and you're thinking to ask for help. Another thing is, a lot of us actually, we don't celebrate the smaller victories, the success that we have. Like, not every day is going to be a productive day. Even to me too, like there are some days that live in the baddest way because accomplishment, and I praise it. I'm happy for it. I'm happy that I was able to stand up, take a shower, eat a breakfast, go to classes. I may not be able to do all the work I needed for those classes, but I'm happy that I actually show up for class. It may not be a massive success, but I always say, always celebrate your smaller success as the way you celebrate your biggest success.
That, and you know what, Sayid? I would go so in depth with you, but I feel like that is the best way to end the podcast. You have to celebrate small victories like you do the large ones, because not every day is going to be a good day. So you got to take what you can get because life is hard. Life is truly tough.
Yeah.
And only the strongest survive.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you're only as strong as you really believe it.
Yeah.
And if you are a Blue Jay, that means that you're strong. I don't care what anyone says. Being a Westminster College Blue Jay is not an easy job. And if you are a Blue Jay and you're making it through, Sayid and I are both seniors. We've been through everything we need to go through, and we're strong. Like we're stronger than we've ever been before because we came to the school. And in this podcast, today, hopefully the students that listen to this podcast take a lot from it because a lot of dimes were dropped today, and a lot of good things were said, a lot of things that they could use in the future, both in school and out of school, out the classroom and in the classroom, with people, and with people that they don't necessarily like. It's life isn't always going to be easy. Life is always going to be a challenge. It's going to be a change. Yeah, and you just have to be ready for it, just like Sayid said. So, Sayid, and for those of you that don't know, Sayid went to Princeton this summer. Ivy League. We're talking about the Princeton. Before we go, I just you gotta tell us I've never been to an Ivy League. I've always wanted to go. The closest to an Ivy League I've ever been to is probably Westminster or Missouri S&T, and Missouri S&T was a camp. It wasn't really. I was there for a summer, but it wasn't really it's not Princeton, So, tell us about quickly about your experiences at Princeton. What the camaraderies, how it was, dealing with the students, that intellect, what went into getting there.
Actually, the fellowship that I got from Princeton this summer is called, BPI, Public Policy International Affairs, JCI, Junior Seminary, and it's actually one of the competitive fellowships to do as a junior student undergrad. I'm not gonna lie to you, Princeton, going through, walking those, walls that, Albert Einstein walked through was actually something beautiful to see. And at the same time, actually, Princeton kind of bring me to think about this, take advantage of every opportunity you have, and whether that you are here at Westminster College today, or whether you are senior in high school, and especially in the summer at Princeton was one of the best times I had. I feel like that I will remember being in time in college. It wasn't easy. I was waking up every day. I was take class from 8 in the morning till 10 p.m.
Really?
It was long lectures. Each lecture was 3 hours long.
Wow.
And I was taking I took economics, statistics at Westminster College, but what I was doing at Princeton was a higher level than I did before. I even challenged myself, so I took some courses that I haven't done before. For example, I'm not a computer science major, but it has been a long time since high school since I did coding. But this summer I was able to challenge myself to learn how to code again. I was learning this program called R, which is used to analyze data. So sometimes, if you have an opportunity, there is nothing wrong about trying something new. It doesn't mean, even if you fail, it doesn't mean that you fail. It just means that you're trying it, you're learning. It was challenging, being in that kind of environment where a lot of people that you look up to went to, and in a place like that, who's prestigious and known for education, was an opportunity. But nevertheless, I was really, really grateful for all the professors from Westminster College who prepared me to have an opportunity like that. I felt like if it wasn't for Westminster College, I wouldn't be able to be I wouldn't be able to be at Princeton. I took economics, but if my professor from Westminster College didn't taught me that what an economics or statistics, I wouldn't be able to do well at Princeton. So I feel like, thank you to all of you who prepared for us some opportunities that we never know that could happen in the future.
Students at Westmo, Sayid is one of 10 people to make it into Princeton's prestigious summer program that classes from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that's amazing, and you can do this too. Like, it's not, it's going to be hard. It's how you put the work in. It wasn't easy. It didn't happen overnight. He built his home that he's making, and now he's doing everything that he can to turn it into an empire, turn it into a castle. Like he's taking the steps to build a legacy like nobody else, like no other. One of the. Are you the only Westmo student to ever?
Yes, I am the first Westminster student who actually got into this fellowship, but I hope I will not be the last one.
Yeah, you won't be the last one. Somebody will follow in Sayid's footsteps, if even if it's the last thing he has to do before he leaves this earth, which I hope is a long time. I hope I see you, for years. I hope I grow old and we still keep in touch.
Because I would love to, man. I would love to see where life takes us to both of us.
Man, that's Sayid. It was a pleasure, and this is the end of the very first before the Tassel podcast, and it's the greatest first episode I could have ever imagined. I appreciate you, students. I hope you guys learned a lot from this. There will be more episodes. You will see Sayid again before the end of this semester. And Sayid, you got anything or anyone you want to shout out before we cut the podcast off?
I mean, I'm rooting for, I'm cheering up for everybody from Westminster and every kid around the world who is trying to do something art that his or her family have never done before. It is not impossible. It is possible, and as long as you work hard, you discipline yourself to do the things that are not easier to do, I'm sure life will take you some places. And I couldn't say any less. But as I said earlier, always celebrate for the smaller achievements you have, the way you celebrate for the bigger ones you will have.
Well, Blue Jay Nation, you heard it here first from Sayid, and I hope you guys just really, really just pay attention to everything that was talked about here. A lot of good insights from a very intellectual person in Sayid. I learned a lot today, and I hope you did too. And I hope to see you guys back again at before the Tassel. This is the end of our very first episode, and we appreciate everyone that gave us a listen, everyone that is giving us feedback, and we'll be sure to see you guys again. All right, Sayid, I'm gonna have to say goodbye.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate you as well. And to the students, I'll see you guys again.